The Education Channel presents Vote 2008, a preview of the school district referendum and a profile of the school board candidates appearing on the November 4th general election ballot. Here's Joe Landon.
Well, our guest, Becky Newell. She's a mom, she's a school volunteer, and she chairs the Yes for Collier Students Committee. Becky, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Bring us up to speed. Tell us what led you to the point that you're at today.
Well, I started to become very interested in what was happening with our school district at probably close to a year ago. I have a son who is in the ESE program. He's a student at Big Cypress Elementary. And when all the changes started happening in the ESE department last year, I became very concerned with what was happening. And I started to attend school board meetings, and in the process of talking with people about what was happening with the budgets for our schools, I ran across someone who was a former resident of Monroe County. Monroe County, Florida, 4 years ago, passed their own version of this referendum that we're talking about today. And then in January of this year, they renewed this referendum for another 4 years. It's worked so well for them. What this referendum lets them do, and will let us do, is to move money from our capital fund to our operating fund. Our capital fund lets us pay for new schools, for renovations of existing schools, for technology, for transportation equipment. We don't need those things at this point. We've done what we needed to do there. Where we're experiencing cuts is in our operating fund. We do need the money there. So if we pass this referendum, just like Monroe County did, it will let us move money into our operating fund and hopefully preserve the educational opportunities that our students have. If I had not met this person who knew about what had been done in Monroe County, it never would have come to my attention. I wouldn't have had a reason to know about this. Once I found out about it, I did some research. I placed a call to the superintendent's office in Monroe County, had a school board member call me back, explain how it worked, made a couple of calls to the Department of Education in Tallahassee and asked more questions. And then when I had the research together, I brought it to Mrs. Curatolo on our school board. And she sort of took it from there, and now here we sit with it on our ballot in November.
And she brought this to the school board during the May meeting of the District School Board of Collier County.
I want to extend appreciation to the community member, Becky Newell, who brought this to our attention and was diligent about moving forward.
That brings us to where we are today. The November 4th general election ballot will have a school district referendum appearing on it. And here's the language. Allow tax-neutral, flexible funding for Collier County public schools. And the question, shall the Collier County School District A, reduce ad valorem taxes for capital funding by 0.25 mils, and B, enact ad valorem taxes for operating expenses of 0.25 mils, an equal dollar amount, C, for a period of up to 4 years beginning July 1st, 2009, thereby providing more efficient and effective use of public school funding while remaining tax neutral. So, Becky, what does this referendum do?
What this referendum does, the bottom line is it's basically a transfer of money from the capital fund to the operating fund. The referendum language says we reduce taxes going into the capital fund, we increase taxes going into the operating fund. The amount of money that's collected is exactly the same. There's no tax increase. Whether we have this referendum or not, you'll pay exactly the same amount in property taxes. But it lets us move that money from where we don't need it, as we did several years ago when we were building new schools and all kinds of other capital projects, and it lets us put it in the operating fund where we need it for our students. The amount of money that we're talking about from 1 year to the next, it is in effect for a period of 4 years, and the amount of money that we're talking about each year is somewhere between $16 and $19 million. I can't say an exact dollar amount because it depends on the appraised value of all the properties in Collier County in any given year. So this is something that will happen each year, and that the capital fund will be replenished each year with our property taxes. So just this small portion of it, 1/8 of the total amount that we pay in property taxes for the capital fund, would go into the operating fund.
So I guess the question would be, Collier County is a wealthy county, even in these tough times, an affluent county. Why aren't my taxes enough to properly fund the operating expenses of the school district?
I hear this question all the time, and it's a confusing, the way our property taxes are allocated for the schools can be confusing if you don't realize what the state laws that affect this are. A long time ago, the state of Florida passed a law saying that every school district, every county in the state would pay its property taxes, and the portion of the property taxes that go for the operating fund are sent to Tallahassee. They go to the state level. That money is redistributed to each school district throughout the state at the same amount per student. So even though in Collier County we collect a huge amount of money in property taxes every year, that operating money doesn't stay in Collier County, because there are other counties throughout the state that don't have the property values we have. Those students, if we didn't redistribute this money, would have an educational system that's not anything close to what we have in Collier County. This is an equalizer for the education of all the students in Florida. So Collier County is actually considered a donor county as far as our operating funds are concerned. We pay much more than we get back. So that money that we pay every year, yes, the capital fund, what we pay into the capital fund stays here in Collier County, but what we pay into the operating fund does not.
So Becky, bottom line question, I guess, why do we need the referendum?
Well, because at this point we have lost students in Collier County. We get roughly, the state funding formula that I talked about, we get roughly $6,000 per student we have in Collier County. When we have fewer students, we get less money, and it seems as if that would mean we didn't need the money. However, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of the time, you'll lose, say we lost 20 students. That sounds like a class. Mm-hmm. But some of those students are at one school, some are at another school. They're at completely different grade levels. So we don't necessarily lose any of the expenses that we have to pay. We still have the same expenses because we haven't lost enough students to need fewer teachers, need fewer classrooms. So we end up in a situation where we're not getting as much money. We also experienced budget cuts from the state legislature several times during the school year last year. It looks like the same thing's going to happen this year. So we continue to get less money, but our expenses are the same or higher. So this money that could be moved from the capital fund can offset some of those losses that we're experiencing.
And just how will the money be used?
Well, the money will be used to pay for extracurricular and student development types of activities. These activities are all things that are not mandated by the state of Florida. They include things like related arts such as music, art class, technology. PE is actually mandated. We would not lose PE. However, we could very easily lose the other related arts classes. We're not required to offer AP classes in high school. We're not required to have sports or marching band or choir or any of those other programs that many of our students really depend on. So if we get to a point where we do not have enough money to fund everything that we currently offer students, those are the things that would be lost. This money will allow us to keep the programs that our students need. There are many students in this county and everywhere who their main motivation for staying in school and for doing well in school is those extracurricular activities. And even if that's not the case, a lot of those programs also lead to scholarships that allow students to go to college where maybe they wouldn't be doing that without these programs. So it's incredibly important to the students, but if we have to cut something, we're required to cut things that are not required by law. So my understanding is that that is exactly where this money would go. It would allow us to continue to offer programs for our students. The second priority for this money is to rebuild the district's strategic reserves that have already been depleted because of the budget cuts we've gotten from the state level.
So just to recap for a second, if the mission is student achievement and development, this is about the development piece of that.
Right. Yes, it is. And that is part of the mission statement of the Collier County School District. That's what we're about. That's what our school district is about. I keep saying we because as I'm not an employee of the school district, I'm a parent. But the way I look at this is our school district. And what we are about is offering opportunities to students for student development and achievement.
Well, we mentioned earlier this is a tax-neutral referendum. What does that mean exactly?
That just means that regardless of whether or not this referendum is passed, there will be no difference in anyone's property taxes. You'll pay the same amount whether we pass the referendum or not. This just allows us to direct where our money is used and to use it where we actually need it without raising taxes. And it's fairly unusual to be able to increase money that's available for student programs without increasing taxes.
So with voter approval on November 4th, we wouldn't be in danger of running short of capital funding.
No, we would not. Our total millage for the capital fund is 2 mills. This takes 0.25 mills, which is 1/8 of the amount that we pay into our capital fund every year. It doesn't take money that we have just already sitting in the capital fund. This is a percentage of the money that's paid in each year. So we have, since we're not building new schools, we've done that. We've renovated most of our existing schools. There are a few renovations that will still happen, but they're already budgeted in the capital fund. So we don't need this money that's sitting there. There also, I understand, is a cushion that will still be left in the capital fund just in case of emergencies. But if we were to have, say, a major hurricane, we have insurance that would cover those damages. We don't need to pay that from the capital fund. So we will not have a problem with our capital fund.
Looking at the demographics here, we know that we have a lot of residents of Collier County who don't have students in the school district, maybe not even grandchildren. Their grandkids are up north. Why should this matter to them?
Those people, very often it's easy to say, well, I've educated my kids, I've paid these taxes wherever I lived when my kids were growing up, and I don't think I should have to worry about this now. But this truly affects our entire community. If we lose these types of activities that we currently offer for our kids in the schools, it affects the quality of the education those students are getting. It affects, because our property, because the education offered by the school district wouldn't be of the same quality that it is now, that affects things like property values, economic development, all kinds of things in the entire community. If you have someone who's thinking they want to move to Florida with their kids, and they look at different communities, they call someone in Collier County and say, how are the schools there? And if they're told, well, there's no marching band, there's no sports, there's no related arts, they're not coming here. The same thing goes for businesses that are considering relocating. If they're thinking of asking their employees to move to this area, bring their families with them, they won't come here. They'll go somewhere that has done whatever it took to keep these opportunities for kids.
So you're in the community a lot, I hear, speaking with people, even I'm sure being approached at grocery stores or when you're shopping. What are the kinds of questions people are asking about this referendum?
Well, I get a lot of comments and I get a lot of questions. One of the things that I do hear is, I'm not happy with the school district because of this or that or whatever the issue is that this person has with the school district. And they say, I don't want to give them any more money than they already have. My answer to that concern is that this is money that the school district has. It's sitting in the capital fund, and they cannot use it for where we need it at this point. They can't use it for the programs where we're lacking money. So we're not giving anyone anything that they don't already have. We're allowing our school district to take what they have, the resources they have, and use them where they're needed.
Any other questions that you're hearing quite often?
I do hear people ask about accountability. How will I know where this money is being spent? And from my understanding, there will be accountability measures set up so that the public will be notified. This is what's happening with this money. This is how much we transferred from the capital to the operating fund based on our property values, and this is what we've done with it. And we've funded these extracurricular programs, and we've added this much money back to our strategic reserves, and I truly believe that that will happen.
I know in both Pinellas County and Monroe County, where they've had these referendums passed, they are really accountable to the community, and they let them know where the money is going.
Yes, and I believe the same thing will happen in Collier County. I think that the public is very concerned about where our money goes. We're concerned about where our personal money goes and where our tax dollars go. And I think that our school district will be very responsive to that.
Becky, I received a sample ballot in the mail the other day, and there are, 4 pages? It's a long ballot. Concern about voter fatigue, I guess. And this is the last item on the 4th page of that ballot?
Yes, and it's on the back of the ballot.
Wow.
So we're hoping that doesn't put us at a disadvantage. What I've been telling people when I go out and talk with them is that, in my opinion, this is the most important thing on the ballot in relation to our children in Collier County. It will directly affect them. It will affect every one of them. And in order to make sure that we don't have negative effects on those children, we need to vote for this first. So I fully intend to flip the ballot over to the very back, vote yes on this referendum, and then go back and do the rest of my ballot, because I do think it's that important.
And the message I've heard from you and others is vote yes for Collier students.
Yes. And the reason for that, the students are the people who will be most affected, either positively by having this referendum passed or negatively if it's not. Every student in this school district will feel some effect if we don't have this money available. All 42,000 of them, whether they're kindergarten kids who'll lose their art and music class, or whether they're high school kids who'll lose their sports or their band or their AP classes, every student will feel something, and some of them will feel quite a few things if we don't have this money available. So, yes, our slogan is vote yes for Collier students, because this is about the students. It's not about the school district. It's not about the board. It's not about the superintendent. It's about the kids.
You're so passionate about this. If someone watching is moved and wants to become involved and feels that passion, what should they do? How could they go about doing that?
The best way, if someone would like to help us, is for them to go to our website, which is www.yesforcollierstudents.com. And there's information on that website about how they can contact us.
What kind of feedback are you getting about this referendum? Are you getting support as you speak to people?
When I go out and I speak to groups or I speak to people one-on-one, sometimes there's discussion, sometimes there's concerns, but after talking with people, I get an overwhelming feeling that people do support this. They may have reservations about one part of it or another, but overall, I think that people do support this because people support kids. It's hard not to support kids, and it's hard not to support education. Education is incredibly important to all of us, and I do get a very strong feeling that people support this.
What would you say to someone who says, it's not my kid?
They're all our kids. They truly are, and our kids are the future of our country. They're the future of our community, and it's our responsibility to educate them to the best of our ability. They need to come out of high school prepared for whatever the next step is for them. So they are our kids. They're all our kids.
And one of your kids, the 10-year-old who has Down syndrome, keeps saying, gotta do, gotta do. That's
one of my little Stephen's favorite sayings. When whatever he's helping with, whatever he's doing, you say thank you, and he says, gotta do, gotta do. So that's my slogan when it comes to all the work that I'm doing to try to get this referendum passed. It's a lot of work at this point for me and for the entire committee, where we have a very committed group of people, but we all have that gotta do sort of attitude about it.
Becky, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Education Channel's special program, Vote 2008, continues, with visits from the two candidates vying for the District 4 seat on the District School Board of Collier County. Here's Leanne Zinser with our first guest.
The order of the next two interviews was determined by the flip of a coin. With me now is school board candidate Joe Paterno. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Let's begin briefly by having you tell us, who is Joe Paterno?
Well, Joe Paterno is a 24-year resident of Collier County, Naples. Currently serve as the executive director of the Southwest Florida Workforce Development Board. Involved in a lot of workforce initiatives of helping people find employment, find jobs. Been doing that for 33 years. Have a business degree, have a business management degree from a little school in West Virginia called the West Virginia Institute of Technology. And I look forward to being part of the school board and serving the community.
And why have you chosen to run for the school board?
Well, I think there's a need. I'm real concerned about the accreditation of our students, and I think most of the people in the community are concerned about that. It could be very devastating for them when, in fact, if we happen to lose accreditation, which I don't think we will, because I think everybody's working hard to make it happen. But in case we ever did lose accreditation or be placed on probation, the effect it could have on the community, not just the students and the students' ability to go to college and get scholarships, but the fact of economic development, trying to bring light, clean, high-tech, high-skill, high-wage jobs could have an effect on us, because the first thing they look at is what's the school district's like. And if our school district is on probation or loses its accreditation, most of those employers will turn away from Collier County.
What do you hope to see the school board do over the next 4 years?
Well, I'd like the school district to get back to where it was, which is a leader in the state of Florida as a school district with education, with innovation, with working hard within the community. And if we accomplish that, then we've accomplished our budget woes, we would have accomplished the accreditation issue, and we would get back on track to making sure that every student gets a quality education. And I think that's the purpose of the school system.
There's a school district referendum on the November 4th ballot, and I understand that you support that.
I do support that, and I hope the community will support that as well. As it's been related, it's a cost neutral. We're transferring some money from the operational from the capital fund to the operation, which is going to be necessary over the next several years. And I believe the referendum will last for 4 years. Without it, there could be some devastating losses to various programs, initiatives that affect our students. And the more we affect our students, the less quality of education we're going to provide to them, which could lead to them being less successful in life. And I think that everybody in this community should support the referendum, and we need to have it. We also need to look at the school system becoming more efficient and finding ways for us to determine where budget cuts can be made without affecting the students.
Joe, final question. Why should voters vote for you for the school board?
Well, I have a business background. I've been involved in workforce. I have a budgeting background, so I understand how to look for various things within the budget to ensure that you make changes and cuts that don't affect students, programs, or people. I think that's got to be our priority, is to not affect student services, student programs, people that are going to affect the lives of our students, because that's what we're here all about. We're here to give the students the best quality education so that they can be successful in life. And the more we can do without cutting programs and initiatives, the better off I think we'll be as a school district, and I know the better off our students will be, because they'll be more successful in life.
Well, Joe, thank you for being on the program.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The Education Channel's Vote 2008 program continues. Here again, Leanne Zinser.
Joining us now is school board candidate Julie Sprague. Julie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let's first start off by having you briefly tell us, who is Julie Sprague?
Julie Sprague is a teacher. I have been a teacher for 30 years. 20 years of my teaching career have been in Collier County. I started off in Collier County at Immokalee High School 20 years ago, and I taught there for 10 years. And since that point in time, I have been at Gulf Coast High School, so just a short period over 10 years at Gulf Coast High School.
And why have you chosen to run for the school board?
I've chosen to run for the school board because I think I have a very unique perspective on education. No one else on the school board at this point in time, or any other candidate that was running for the board, had any educational experience in the classroom. So I hope to be able to offer my different and unique perspective to making board decisions.
What do you hope to see the school board accomplish over the next 4 years?
Well, several things. Number one, probably on my list of things to accomplish would be to get the accreditation off the warning status so we can go back and give our kids what they deserve. They actually have done a great job. Their accreditation perfect. It's the board's dysfunction, and that was the actual word, that has been on Warren status. So that's number one, is to make that go away. Also, I want to make sure that we can balance the budget with the understanding that our children will be the number one priority. I think we need to look at creative ways of making sure that we can continue to have the programs that we do have in place at this point in time. We have a great school system. I would hate to see that compromised in any way.
There's a school district referendum on the ballot on November 4th, and I understand that you support it.
I support that 100% or more, if you can possibly go over 100%. I'm all out there. I'm campaigning not only for myself but also for the referendum. That is essential to making sure that our programs stay up to par, that our students get all of the opportunities that they deserve, and I strongly support everyone to go out and vote yes on that referendum.
And Julie, final question. Why should voters vote for you for the school board?
Once again, I come from a different perspective. I have a different way of looking at things, and I know how the board decisions affect our kids. My motive in all of this is to make sure that our children continue to get a top class, first class, I guess is a better term for it, education, and that they do that not just for this year but for the rest of their lives.
And Julie, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And we'd like to thank all of our guests, and we'd like to thank you for watching. For Joe Landon and all of us here on the Education Channel, I'm Leanne Zinzer. We'll see you at the polls.
Thanks for watching Vote 2008, a general election television special produced by the Education Channel, Cable 20. We hope the information provided by our guests will be helpful as you prepare to vote. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th, General Election Day. We urge you to exercise your right to vote.